The nickname I was assigned within months of moving to Port-au-Prince, Haiti to do volunteer work, it was gratte blanc, which is best described as the scratching white person. This was not an unkind nickname. This was simply, devastatingly accurate. Haiti was my second stop in what was supposed to be adulthood. The first stop was at Mid-America Bible College, which sounds like I just made up Mid-America Bible College for the comedy, but it was just that unimaginative of a moniker. Mid-America Bible College had a lifestyle, covenant, and behavioral expectation code. It forbade drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, dancing, or being seen at establishments maintained for the purpose of dancing because, footloose is real. It also said that what they called sexual confusion was an expulsion-worthy offense. I looked at that time just like this, except for not as old, and I had a bad spiral perm. For me, it was real sexual confusion because I kept thinking, why do people keep thinking I'm gay? It was not at all a good fit. I didn't know where I would fit in better. This is pre-internet, so I didn't know about the existence of Smith or Oberlin, or I guess even a community college in San Francisco. But I had this vague idea that I could maybe make the world a better place, which is just ludicrous. I couldn't balance my checkbook, which is real, regulate my emotions, or locate most countries on a map. But oh no, I was definitely going to change the world. But then a friend of a friend mentioned a school in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. It's a school for kids with orthopedic and sensory disabilities, and they said they desperately needed volunteers just to help with recreational activities, that no special skills required. No special skill, I thought, in the way that you do when you're 19 and possessed with what my therapist now calls deep biological optimism. That describes me perfectly. I have no special skills, or no skills really at all, let alone special ones. I was perfectly qualified. So I emailed the American sister who ran the school and saved up money for my summer camp job. And that was the sum total of my planning. I just got another really bad spiral perm, and I had 3 blue denim skirts. Now, it did seem that in the situation with significant need that required no special skills, perhaps I couldn't help, but maybe just be useful, even if it was accidentally. That was what I was thinking, theoretically, at least. My first week as a volunteer, I taught the kids to make paper airplanes. They immediately just used them to pelt each other in the head. I learned Creole on the job from the kids. This is an excellent way to learn a language quickly and really, really poorly. So if I asked what something was called, and there was a vulgar and a non-vulgar word choice, of course, you can guess which ones the kids provided. So even now, 3 decades later, I'll be chatting with a lovely Haitian gentleman on the B41 bus in Brooklyn. He'll suddenly look horrified by what I said, and then that's my cue to say, I'm sorry, I learned Creole from children. Could you please tell me if there's a more polite way to say that? And there is almost always a more polite way to say it. Anyway, so the kids, they did really need some help with recreation. They mostly came in from the provinces, so they lived in dorms, and because it was the only school at that time that served students with disabilities. And they were overcrowded and very bored. After 3:30 p.m., when the classes were done, it was not unusual to turn the corner in a hallway and find hop, 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 flap, hop, 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 flap. And it would be 2 kids, each hopping on 1 foot, while they attempted to beat the hell out of each other with their removed prosthetic leg, which is why the hopping. And it's important to note that these were not titanium limbs made for running the New York Marathon or competing in the Olympics. They were heavy-duty wooden prosthetics, good for climbing up the side of a deforested mountain. Nothing about this was safe. So, providing recreation was almost a defensive act, right, at that point. I want the kids to have fun that wouldn't result in breaking prosthetic or real limbs, but I was overwhelmed and experienced, and I was frequently out of ideas. We didn't really have many supplies, and the ages of the kids ranged from 4 to 19, and I was only 20. What was I supposed to be doing? I was hot. It was so hot, impatient, immature, and all too often short with them. I also managed to contract ringworm on my face, which I ignored until it covered one entire cheek. It itched constantly, and I was scratched all the time, especially when I was thinking of a word, which was always. So, hence the nickname gratte blanc, scratching white person. Things were going great. One morning, a few months after my reign of hapless recreation volunteer began, Sister Joan called me into her office, air-conditioned office only air-conditioned place on the entire campus. I have a very special project for you, she said. We need to do something about Christopher Columbus. The children should know more about the heroes of Haiti. I thought she was joking. Oh, yeah, like a special commemorative play, I said, with a wink. A wink! I was winking. But once I mentioned it, she latched on like a colonizing bulldog, and I did not know how to stop the train for which I had apparently just built track. Once I had mentioned it, she could not let it go. And I didn't know what to do. There was no ethical way to comply with this. I couldn't do it. I wasn't teaching the kids logic or how to fold paper airplanes or play soccer. I wasn't being really helpful in any other way. But actually engaging them in an artistic celebration of centuries of greed and genocide, that seemed less hapless and more like a hate crime. So, the next afternoon I grabbed 5 of the oldest kids, took them to an empty classroom to explain the situation. We were all silent, just a bunch of hot, angry teenagers screwing in our grumbling resentment. After some time, one of the kids got up and began the most favorite of all the school's pastime. 80% of the time at St. Vincent's, this is what was happening. One kid physically imitating another kid's disability. As Emmanuel, who was partially sighted, pretended to be a blind classmate. Now, remember, this is the kids themselves doing this, stumbling around, dramatically bumping into walls and falling over. Another kid said, "Hey, look, it's Christopher Columbus discovering Haiti by accident." And just like that, the script was born. The kids conceived a play that was something like between a classic farce and a Saturday Night Live skit. Christopher Columbus became this bumbling character who landed in Haiti, as in real life, by accident, but the kids added a new twist. The ship became lost because Columbus had accidentally used the only available map as toilet paper. When the boat landed in Haiti, Columbus fell onto the island and squashed 3 small children in the process. Anytime there was a large pot of rice and beans within 12 feet of him, he took multiple tripping steps, which always resulted in him inexplicably falling completely into the hot pot face first. Then the kids built a huge papier-mâché goat, which they would throw through the scene whenever Columbus spoke, in a particularly jarring attempt, I guess, at establishing an objective correlative. The implication was that his voice was so grating that it caused even normally calm farm animals to run in potentially suicidal horror. It often narrowly missed Christopher Columbus's head. The kid playing Columbus definitely deserves some kind of hazard pay. When I asked the kids why the goat was flying, they looked at me like I had no sense. It's made of paper. It can't walk, which was a fair point. The day of the play's debut, parents who lived in town filed in, and Sister Joan sat on the front row. I forgot I was using her name. The kids had practiced tirelessly, and I knew they were ready, but their extreme enthusiasm had an unexpected result. They were so excited that every bit of physical comedy they had rehearsed was magnified threefold. Christopher Columbus tripped 4 times in each scene. He was swirling so mightily into the pots that I feared that he could easily sustain a concussion. The objective correlative goat flew so hard and so fast, accompanied by desperate, soulful bleating sounds, that it would often crash into the opposite wall, sustaining moderate structural damage each time, the goat, not the wall. By the time the play was almost finished, all that was left was the goat was the head. I don't know if you've ever experienced theater in which a disembodied goat head flies through each dramatic scene, but it's a lot. But there was one more surprise for the audience as well. Also for me, the kids had rewritten the end of the play without my knowledge late the night before. The revised and very dramatic conclusion was inspired by then a recent event in Haiti's history. After the coup that ousted the Duvaliers, a group of angry protesters had ripped up one of the city's statues of Columbus and carried to the port and dumped it in the ocean. The audience and I looked on in surprise as a kid playing Christopher Columbus began his closing line, but was rushed by the entire cast. They hustled him from the room where the play was taken into an adjacent courtyard. The audience stood up and craned their necks to see the conclusion of the action. The kids escorted a flailing Christopher Columbus, who could barely contain its delight at being part of this unexpected ending, to the deck surrounding the shallow therapy pool, and threw him in. As Christopher Columbus emerged dripping while unsuccessfully attempting to look dejected from the therapy pool, the crowd cheered and clapped. The kids looked the happiest I've ever seen them, and Sister Joan looked very, very angry. I was a volunteer, so she couldn't exactly fire me, but she did subject to a 1-hour lecture about knowing my place. The hilarious thing, of all the activities that I engaged during those years, during my lost and closeted years in general, not stopping Christopher Columbus from experiencing some consequences of his own actions was probably one of the few times that I was actually in exactly the right place. I wasn't really going to change the world, but for one brief, ridiculous moment, I got out of the way while it changed itself.